Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, February 26th, 2019 business meeting of the Olympia City Council. We've not been here for a few weeks due to Snowmageddon 2019. We're going to be getting an update on the city's response to the snowstorm. But before that, I want to acknowledge that Councilmember Rollins is excused. Other than that, we have a quorum. All right. Item 2B is also a special recognition tonight, and that's a report on the recent Thurston County Code Blue homeless response during our hazardous weather. And I'd like to invite back up Keith Staley.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Keith Staley, Community Planning and Development Director. I am very proud to be making this presentation, this special recognition presentation. When I think back to where we were a year ago or 2 years ago when we had similar weather events, but we didn't really have an effective plan in place to respond to them, it makes a warm spot in my heart. And it made a warm spot for about 70 of our unhoused citizens here in the community over the recent weather events. The Salvation Army stepped forward and offered their sanctuary. The county came forward and offered money and staff support. Local nonprofit agencies stepped forward and offered staff to staff the shelter. And it came together in a home for people that needed a place to stay. It also demonstrated how well we can, when we think in advance and we coordinate our efforts and coordinate our resources, we can truly have a remarkable impact on people's lives. And we also recognize that not everybody is going to come to Code Blue Shelter, that some people are going to choose to shelter in place. And this was the first time that during a weather event like this that we actually went out to the encampments and went literally tent to tent and said, how's it going? What do you need? What can we bring to you by way of hats, blankets, water, snacks, socks, gloves, and the like. Those efforts were all met with thanks and gratitude. That was really extraordinary. This is not to say that this was adequate, that it met everybody's needs, that it was perfect, because it's not, but it definitely was a step in the right direction. And two people that had a very key role in that are here this evening, Keely Marino with the Thurston County and Mark Stearns with the Salvation Army. Keely's going to be coming up here momentarily now, and will provide you with an overview of the services that were delivered and sort of the nuts and bolts of how we did that. And then Captain Mark Stearns will be here to talk briefly about the actual shelter operation, and all of us will be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. It is my distinct pleasure to come before you in my role as Thurston County Homeless and Affordable Housing Coordinator, which I've been able to do for the last couple of months, and it's been quite lively. And previously, as many people know, I was able to facilitate one of the shelters during Code Blue for 5.5 years at Rosie's Place at Community Youth Services. So the Hazardous Weather Task Force and our efforts are very important to me, and I take great pleasure in being able to coordinate it and facilitate those meetings. So our shelter system currently within Thurston County consists of 7 year-round shelters. Those serve populations, the single adult population, families with young children, and youth and young adults. So we have Community Youth Services, Family Support Center, Interfaith Works, Salvation Army, all are contracted with Thurston County to provide sheltering services throughout the year. We also have Drexel House with Catholic Community Services, and Olympia Gospel Mission and Safe Place DV Shelter. During the cold weather, which we last year determined was a season rather than individual days based on temperature, runs from November 1st to the end of April. And during that time, 3 shelters are contracted to extend their capacity during those months, and those are Community Youth Services Rosie's Place, Salvation Army, and Family Support Center. Beyond that, when there's a code blue, we call upon all of our service providers that are offering shelter to go beyond that capacity and offer as many beds as we possibly can. This code blue, we did call code blue in December, which was 3 days and went fine. But this code blue went 12 days. And during that time, we were able to serve, we had 536 extra bed nights. So that means each night there were an average in the Salvation Army 1505 Worship Center, anywhere from 35 to 66 people who ordinarily are outside of the shelter system. During that time, those 12 days, the regular shelter providers provided 2,747 cold weather beds, averaging about nearly 300 people a night. But on top of that, as Keith mentioned, we were able to provide services out in the community with folks that are outside of the shelter system. And we were for the first time, we made 270 contacts. Now that's a duplicated number, not 270 individuals necessarily, but each of those contacts represented at least one other person that they were gathering supplies for back at their encampment. And we distributed about 1,400 survival items in that 12-day period, all in conjunction with so many business owners and government folks and service providers and concerned community members. So it was an extraordinary effort. We're very excited about what we can glean from this to make the next round go even better. But I'm really pleased to bring those numbers forward and the success that Code Blue was this time.
Thank you. Captain Stearns.
I'm Captain Mark Stearns with the Salvation Army, and I can tell you that nobody could have planned for an event like this. 12 days of white on the ground was something that I think took all of us by surprise. But one thing that did that we all came away from with all this was that we all came together as a group, as a team, as concerned citizens to help our neighbors. As Keely just mentioned, 536 heads and beds at our chapel up the street at 1505 is quite a feat. But that could not happen without cooperation and coming together with not just the Salvation Army, but with Interfaith Works, with the Union Gospel Mission, with concerned volunteers around our community. It also took a lot of work from concerned individuals, and they brought blankets, they brought socks, they brought food. It was just an amazing effort. And so the people that came hungry, they came tired, they came cold, but they came and they were welcomed. Everybody got a handshake. Everybody was welcomed into what they would call their home for the night. And they slept warm and they slept dry. We heard stories of how people lost their tent because trees fell on them or the weight of the snow crushed the tent. That is no way for anybody to live. At least we were able to give them something for the short term. But it wasn't just the Salvation Army. It was everybody. It was Olympia, and it was Olympia coming together. We, as a community, have got reason to be proud. What does the future look like? It looks great. The Salvation Army is already making plans to house even more at the next event. We are going to be making some dramatic changes where we are going to be moving our administrative and our social service office off of 5th Street and moving that up to 1505 so we can put all of our sheltering downtown. That will allow us to sleep even more people closer to home. A lot of people didn't want to go up the hill because it was too far from home. And so that'll allow them to sleep even closer to home. We will be able to house close to 175 at the worst possible times. And that is where we are intending to go. A year from now, things are going to be looking even better for our houseless friends. These are our neighbors. This is part of our community, and we are here to help. I want to thank the city of Olympia for coming together and helping our friends. I want to thank all of the nonprofits for coming together and working together as a team. I'd like to thank Intercity Transit for loaning buses and taking people up to the shelter without cost. That all happened because people cared, and that is something that I really appreciate about this community. We remember that four-letter word, care. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that report. Any comments from the council? Councilmember Bateman? Or were you had one more thing to add? I'm sorry.
Just one quick point of information. At some point in the not too distant future, Keely and I hope to bring forward an interlocal agreement that memorializes our relationship, the relationship that we have around Code Blue, and brings all of the cities in the county and the county together in a legally binding document that dictates how we will respond to Code Blue in the future. We've had plenty of opportunity now to exercise our plan. We'll continue to refine that plan, but we do look forward to coming forward with an interlocal agreement that memorializes this soon. So thank you.
Thank you. And I know we have on board as well Rich Hoy to talk about our street response, but I think I'll just take a break real quick and see if there's any comments from up here. Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Bateman.
Thank you. I just want to welcome both of our guests here tonight. I don't think I've met Captain Stearns and Keely. I don't think I've welcomed you in your new position. So welcome to both of you. And I also want to just say that, Keely, I'm so happy that someone with your direct hands-on experience in that industry, working with people, is in the position that you are now. So you can help us as we move forward. And turning off my microphone. The progress that we've made on the coordination of all these efforts, it couldn't have come at a better time. And so I'm really hoping that all the progress that was made in this work, we can save that for future reference so we can ask people, you know, when we need help and supplies, we can have that on hand and just put that out. And to know that you served and increased how many people you were serving is really, really amazing. I know it took a lot of effort and such a really important time to do it. I didn't know that Intertransit was offering those free rides for folks. And I also really appreciate you going out into the woods and providing those survival supplies for people that weren't able to actually come into town. And we later on today will be discussing our plan for sea level rise. And as a result of climate change, some of these storm events could be happening more frequently. So it's really great that we were able to learn this now and we can plan for the future and hopefully replicate this if this does happen again. But just thank you, and thank you to the city staff that helped collaborate and do all these activities with you and all the other service providers. So thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Parsley.
A year ago, I was a brand new city councilor, and I do know the difference between last year and this year. Do we have a long ways to go? Yeah, but you know what? We should take the moment to celebrate what we have accomplished. And I think our response to this Code Blue is one of those examples. And I think we should take a moment of hope, because sometimes it's hard to not lose that when you see the uphill battle we got, and we should celebrate little victories like this. So thank you, and thank everybody who worked on that.
And I'll just add in closing for this part that Councilmember Rollins is currently on Ocean Shores studying emergency response planning with folks from across the state. And I think this is just a microcosm of emergency response planning at its finest. So thank you for all your efforts. Item 2B, we're on to our public comment period. Jeremy Scott, followed by Judith De Silva, followed by Joseph De Silva.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm here tonight to express gratitude for the council, City of Olympia, for giving us a position to be in the lot that we are, the smart lot. Excuse me, I'm kind of horse sick, been doing a lot of things. We want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. The community does. We had a situation. We had a calling. We called the community to help us clean up 10 City on Sunday. Me, mainly by myself, 2 days, I was already cleaning up. Thing about it is we're all together on this one. If everybody that was talking tonight, one thing I got out of everybody's conversations was we did it together. We're a community. Tonight's the night where I can say Olympia's getting back to Olympia pride because we're doing it all together. I want to thank some of the council members that came down and met with us when they could have been with their family. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Nathaniel. Sorry we didn't get together, Mr. Gilman, but today is the day that the people spoke. They had a situation where there was filth around them. I got them together like I felt like Sergeant Slaughter off of Gomer Powell. Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. We can do it, we can do it. And you know what? We all came together. And all the volunteers, Just Housing, the community, they responded huge with donations, clothes, shovels, gloves, and their time. So I say, if we can do this one time, we can do this a million more times and do it together. And so again, like I said, when we did this smart lot to clean up, we want to let the officials know in the city of Olympia that we really appreciate you guys and that today is it's Olympia Pride. We did this all together. I thank you guys for your time and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Regan Unsold, followed by Lee Reiner, followed by Rachel Da Silva.
Thank you. Regan Unsold, I live in Northeast Olympia, longtime resident. And I wanted to kind of pick up on what Jeremy was saying about Smart Lot. Back in May, this council unanimously adopted Resolution M 1942 that committed us to exploring a path rooted in humility, rooted in compassion, learning about homelessness, especially as it relates to trauma-informed care and harm reduction. And I will say that as someone in the chamber that night, I had goosebumps because that's the kind of commitment, that's the kind of spirit, that's the kind of coming from the soul that I want to be associated, I want to see my community reflect and manifest. And that was in May. And yet, the camp sweeps continued, with one notable exception, and that was the small camp over on Wheeler, the night that you also unanimously adopted the declaration of public health emergency, which coincided with the planned removal of a small camp over on Wheeler Avenue, Nickerson. And the council, I think, aware of the contradictory images of declaring a public health emergency on one hand, while your other hand was causing this camp to be involuntarily removed. And so there was a stay put on that removal. And that stay continues to exist today. And the residents at that camp meet weekly now with their faith community partners and others who have stepped up, built relationships with people in the camp, with members of at least 2 faith communities. That's the kind of solution that we want to see here in Olympia. And so a week ago, Sunday, I think it was, Lisa and Nathaniel responded to an invitation from Jeremy and others in the camp to come down and meet people. And they were down there for over an hour. And I met for another hour and a half with people in the camp afterwards. And many of them marveled that this is the first time that we felt that we've been seen as a human being, as someone who could be part of a solution and not just a blight on the community, because that's also a powerful message. And so that group put together an ask and an offer. And the ask is that the city find a way to convene a work group of camp residents, area businesses that have very legitimate concerns about the presence of that camp, other parties, and figure out what might we be able to do to make that at least acceptable enough until we can find a planned alternative for all residents of the camp.
Thank you.